This man is about to stumble upon one of the coolest guitars that has ever been listed on his local buy trade sells. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. An update to the Trade Tuesday series this week. This instrument is just so fantastically bizarre. I'm so happy I stumbled upon this locally. Because if you watched the other episodes, you'll remember we had $120 kicking around on the Trade Tuesday series, and this instrument just happened to line up perfectly within our budget. Now, unfortunately, it has a headstock repair, it's a little bit beat up, and it's old, and its previous owner did not have a lot of information about it, but I think you're really going to enjoy today's installment of Trade Tuesday. Alright, so that was a pretty nice score here. I've always wanted to try an electric guitar out. When I first started playing guitar, there was one locally that I missed, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't regret buying it. It was like a $450 deal for an Electra Les Paul. It had one of those maple fretboards with the black block inlays. It had a really cool amp to it. It's just one of those deals I should have bought, but it was before I knew there was actually a market for, you know, an Electra instrument. So one of these has always been on my radar. And when I was editing my video last night, my wife sent me a message on Facebook that this had just been listed on a local buy trade sell. I always say keep a close eye on those because you never know what you'll find. I mean, I live in a town called Bryan, Ohio. There is not a lot of musical activity here. You never see anything good, but occasionally you will. So I'm pretty happy with this one. Let's get it home and take a look at it on the bench. This is an Electra MPC Outlaw X710 model. The brand name Electra existed from 1970 through 1984 and was mainly used on Matsumoku-made Japanese imported guitars for the store's St. Louis music. This new brand name replaced the store's old lineup called Apollo. The first instrument made in 1970 was a copy of the Dan Armstrong lucite bodied guitar, and many copycat bolt-on neck designs soon followed after. In the mid-70s though, things started to expand with more and more models being introduced. Pre-1978 Electras will actually have a headstock very similar to that of a Gibson, with an open book design, but they were later changed to a wave fan shape due to legal troubles. The company produced many Les Paul SG 335, some Explorer and Flying V shapes, as well as other designs in its history before being rebranded Electra-Westone in 1984, and then later that year just Westone, retiring the Electra name. This brand was recently revived in 2013 for guitars being built by Ben Chafin and Mick in Tampa, Florida, USA. Within this lineup of guitars existed the MPCs, which this one just happens to be a member of. MPC stands for Modular Powered Circuit. What this means for you is they have built-in effects that you can load into the guitar by placing a cart in the backside. The available effects for purchase were phase shifter, dynamic fuzz, treble bass boost, tank tone, overdrive, filter follower, auto wah, tube sound, octave box, flanger, frog nose, and compressor. Two of those could be placed in the guitar at a time and used independently or at the same time, powered by a 9-volt battery. This particular body style within the lineup was named the Outlaw after the band. It is a neck-through body design with a double cutaway and a signature covered and uncovered pickup look. The 710 is easily identified by the peace sign branded into the mahogany body. The X720 is identifiable by the gray sunburst finish. The X730 has a tobacco sunburst finish, and the X740 was made of maple instead of mahogany. There were also 335, Explorer, and Les Paul MPC styles available that were promoted by famous musicians such as Leslie West, Rick Derringer, Peter Frampton, ELO, and Chris Squire. While many people were quick to write these off as gimmick guitars back in the day, these are some of the most valuable models Electra produced on the secondhand market today. Let's go ahead and dive into this one. Man, this guitar had some interesting surprises under it. So first off, we have a rotary switch that has 5 selections on it. We'll have to figure out what that does later. And we've got 2 humbucker styled pickups. Now sometimes on these import models, humbucker pickups might look like humbuckers and they're actually single coils. I'm not sure what the story is on this one, but let's take a look at them here. It says patent pending, then 280-502, and the same thing on the bridge one, 280-502. But the covers are soldered on, so I'm not going to bother taking them apart. The neck pickup reads 7.17 k ohms, and the bridge pickup by itself is 7.3. Now, in the combination of the middle settings that we'll talk about later, you get about 12.6, then it cuts down to 3.91, and another hot 12.59. But both of those link into this rotary switch, which looks like this. But in removing the bridge, I found the most interesting thing I have never seen before. So this was made in the early 80s when brass was a big thing. There's a reason why this thing has a brass nut, because everybody was saying that this gave you better sustain. Gibson had kind of a similar thing called the sustain sisters, where the bridge posts would go into something that would look similar to this. So that's kind of what they've done here. They just have this big brass block right here that gets screwed into place. That's what these 2 holes are for. And then you have your traditional bridge mounts right here. But even the screws they use to secure this are brass. Now I tried to remove this just to see if there's anything else hiding under here, but that thing is stuck even without those brass screws. And the other fun thing is look at the discoloration difference. This is something that's always covered, so that shows you the original finish and just how much darker the finish that has been exposed is. You see the same thing here, pick guard to non-pick guard area. The bridge itself on this model is a non-wire ABR1 style. It just reads made in Japan. The bridge on this model is really interesting though. So it secures down here with 2 screws, but then you have a normal looking post right here. I think it's really just an over-glorified screw though, because since it's screwed into place, I don't think you can really raise and lower that way. So you string it through the back and it holds it just like a regular tailpiece. You can kind of see what it looks like on the underside here. It's kind of like a car engine. This thing's pretty cool, but it's definitely pitted over the years. Then a signifier of this particular model is the Electra peace sign branded into the guitar, and then it's painted black. Now, as far as the controls go, we'll figure this out in the playing demo. This particular instrument, it is neck through in construction. So you have a big, long mahogany neck here with what appears to be mahogany sides on this particular model anyways. And then this is a real treat. It appears to be a rosewood fretboard, super dark, especially now that I've oiled it here. And it has abalone inlay. So these are actually 2 inlays put in each slot. You can kind of feel a ridge between those. I'm not sure if you'll be able to feel that when you're bending a string. Probably not, but I love this inlay. The 7th fret inlay, it has like flame in it on top of all the abalone goodness. Just beautiful variations on here. Now you can see this was someone's player. They have fingernail divots in the fretboard, and you do have some light fret wear here. I don't think it's anything that needs addressed right away, but definitely good to know about. I believe this is stock. It's a brass nut. It's not glued down or anything. And then underneath the MPC truss rod cover here, this is what the truss rod adjustment looks like. It's your standard Allen key overseas style. And I decided to go ahead and use my black lacquer touch-up pen just to kind of make it look a little better. I don't know, it might look even worse now. But at least you don't see through to the bare wood, so it might not catch your eye as much. But there's the Electra name and their branding. I get a 1.69 inch nut width, which increases to 2.09 at the 12th. First fret neck depth, 0.93. It gets pretty chunky, 0.98 at the 12th. And it looks like we've got a 24 3/4 inch scale. Just one more thing to point out on this fretboard. Take a look at the binding. You've got kind of a black and cream thing going on, very similar to a Spotlight Special. But on closer observation, it's actually tortoiseshell binding. Oh my goodness. I think this makes me love this guitar. I mean, look at that. This thing is just so fancy. It's been a while since I've been this excited for a guitar. Love this. And the fun just never stops with this guitar. Let's take a look at these electronics here. It looks like this utilizes 150K pots potentially. At least that's what the markings make it look like, but you have 4 pots there all grounded together. Then once again, those 2 switches right here that look like this. Now, what's kind of interesting to note is that there's an additional ground wire that just kind of goes into this screw hole to complete the cavity. This is fascinating. Look at this. So it says output cavity 1 and 2, input from module, feeds master volume directly. So what this system is you can plug in different effects to it if you have them, if you're lucky enough to still have the cartridges. Right here is where a 9-volt battery can sleep if the particular effect that you're using requires it. So it's kind of like built-in pedals on here. And then I'm not quite sure what this is. My best guess is you're supposed to leave this out to help you open the lid easier, because that's just sitting on a hinge. I'm not sure why these 2 are missing. Maybe it came from the factory that way or somebody took them off. And then you close this off by moving this little brass thing right over top of it to lock it in place. To show you how rare those little plug-in modules are, you can see here in the current 2019 vintage guitar price guide, just a single module is worth between $85 to $115, if you can find one separately anyways. And yes, I've been holding out on you. This is what they look like. Now what I love about these things is they remind me of NES cartridges. So you've got a big blocky plastic casing on them, and then the inside you have some contacts there so it can read what's on the disc. But here you can see, very similar technology here. It just made me laugh. I love this thing. But I have a phase shifter and a flanger. Now what's kind of cool about the design of these, I mean, you see it's the Electra logo, but that's not all it's for. So this one, it's just one thing, right? But this one, the flanger, they're actually knobs. So this one adjusts the speed and this one adjusts the range. But these things plug in just like an NES cartridge. See that little blue thing? You just slide them on in there. You might have to blow on it a few times to make it work. Maybe we should see if we can load Mick Kids in here. Or Mario 3 or Mario 2. This thing's just so cool. But the fun doesn't end there. Here you can see the neck through block right there. And it looks like you got maybe 1 or 2 pieces on either side. You can kind of see that along the edges here. You've got an output jack on the side that's slightly recessed. But what's awesome here is the comfort features. Not only do you have a little bit of a comfort cut right there, but you also have one right up here. I mean, it's a heavily sculpted body. It's pretty comfortable to play. Usually a guitar like this would be pretty thin, but I mean, that's pretty chunky. I mean, this is a very substantial feeling instrument. And since it's neck through construction, they could sculpt this away too. Now, I am a little bit sad to announce that there is a small crack right here. And I did not notice this when I bought it. However, this one almost looks like it's just in the finish to me. But this guitar still plays. It holds pitch just fine, but I do want you to be aware of that one. Going up the neck here, I mean, it's pretty basic stuff. This one has quite a few nicks and dings. Most notably right here, there's a large ding that you do feel while you play. And now the headstock repair. I mean, this thing was just beaten or something. It's got a nice nasty crack running up here, and then it's got the main break right here. Now, this was not a super professional repair job by any means. They just kind of clamped it and glued it. I mean, you could probably break it, put some splines in it, make it look pretty, but as of right now, it functions. However, if I have to ship this guitar to you for a trade, just know you're probably going to have to repair it again. I'm not sure if it'll hold up shipping or not. So just a bit of a disclaimer there. But here's something else that's cool. Notice how this mahogany wood grain does not match this mahogany wood grain. They actually spliced a very thin piece of mahogany right here, I think to kind of help create the larger volute. And in return, you get kind of a fancy looking headstock. And here's our serial number, 11810, made by Electra. From what I've read in the vintage price guide, you can tell the year of manufacture by the first digit. So these were made from 1970 through about, 1983? But this particular model wasn't made until 77, so my best guess is 1981. And another thing to notice, look, we've got Bullseye Grover milk bottle tuners. I mean, these things are worth quite a bit just on their own for restoration reasons. When I said it's chunky, I mean it. It's almost 9 pounds. 8 pounds, 14.1 ounces. But to be honest, I think a lot of the weight is in the body because it feels a lot chunkier than that. All right, let's go ahead and dig into the electronics of this thing. I fiddled around with it for a half hour and I think I've got a pretty good grasp on what's going on here. So this is a master volume for both pickups. This one is a master tone. These two knobs control the level of the effects. And these little flippers, yes, one of them's broken, they're both supposed to be the same size, turns the effect on and off. And then this Veritone switch is acting as your pickup selector. So number 1 is both pickups in series and in phase. Number 2 is just the neck pickup. 3 is both pickups parallel and in phase. 4 is just the bridge pickup. And then 5th, it's both of them again, but series and out of phase. So let's go ahead and hear how this thing sounds. Just as a warning, as we saw with 150K pots, I probably could have told you then and there that this would be a rather dark sounding instrument. So it's rather dark, a little bit quieter than my other guitars, but not like crazy quiet or anything. So let's start with position number 2, just the neck. Now we'll switch to the bridge. And now we'll compare all the both settings. So this is in series and in phase. So this is both again, but in parallel and in phase. Now this is both of them in series, but out of phase. So it's kind of like position 1, but now you're out of phase. Gives you a little bit of a quackier tone. So it's got a lot of interesting sounds. The pickups sounded a lot better than I thought they were going to. So now let's dive into these effects here. Just as a quick refresher here, just to access your effects, you just do this. No unscrewing needed or anything. I've got a flanger and a phase shifter in here, and they sound very similar to me. Now the phase shifter has a little black switch right here, which changes the effect up a little bit. And this one, you can adjust the speed and range from back here. So let's go ahead and give these guys a sound test. We will start with the phase shifter. It's kind of like a phaser-esque thing. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to do. And just to show you that I haven't mixed them up, here's the other one. the key to the flanger is to keep your control down, because if you put this all the way to 10, cover your ears, it just bleeds your ears out. So here we are on 10. I'm probably gonna have to adjust the volume levels here. It's like a UFO or a bird attack. The highest you can have this thing is like 8.5 before it does that. Then it adds a really nice shimmer to your tone. Put both on at the same time too. So in messing with the phase shifter, it sounds like this. Then when you flip the back switch up, kind of gets a even trippier effect to it. I personally prefer the other one, but this would definitely work sometimes. I personally prefer this one turned all the way down to like 2 or 3. Man, these effects are actually usable, unlike the Effectors one. Now we're on the Runt 20 in the Dirty channel. Full disclosure, I brought the bridge pickup up in between because I thought it was sounding a little bit weak, and now it's a little bit better balanced. So bridge pickup. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't sound as good distorted as it does clean, but I mean, different amps, different tones, different sounds. I wouldn't necessarily count this one completely out, but it is a fun, funky little clean machine. I'm in love with this guitar. It's quirky in all the right areas and still sounds good. So now that we've learned about this Electra Outlaw, what are my final thoughts on it? You know, it's kind of a goofy shape. It might be called an Outlaw, but it kind of reminds me of a coffin in a way. It's kind of cool. I like it. but I was just blown away by how this guitar feels. I mean, this really does feel like I'm playing a high-end Gibson in construction. It's got all these fancy features to it with the abalone inlays, the multi-bound neck with tortoise shell and cream. It just looks so beautiful. But the neck, it's nice and chunky. The finish is feeling good. I mean, this is definitely a super quality instrument. So I guess I can understand a little bit better why, Gibson threatened lawsuits and how a lot of people ended up with these over the American-made products. So I think I will definitely be checking out some more Electras in the future. But if you are interested in trading me something for this guitar, keep in mind, I'm not going to let this thing go for just anything. I almost really want to keep it. It's just that beautiful of a guitar, headstock, repair, and all. But I do want to make mention of the 11th fret on the high E string chokes out. I'm not quite sure why, if it's a slightly high fret or if you need to raise the action, but that's the only note that gave me any issues. Because there's not necessarily any fret wear in that area or anything. But I want you to be aware of that. But other than that, everything seems to function on this guitar just fine. I will do a little bit of a clarification here. It actually is a 5-piece body. So you've got one right here, a small one here, there, and there. For whatever reason, you can really see that in the blacklight here. But lots of light nicks and dings pretty much all over this thing. But for how old it is, being from the early 80s most likely, it's actually in pretty good shape, minus the headstock repair. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So I did go ahead and touch that up. In hindsight, I think I need to do a little bit of painter's tape in the future if I ever do this again. That way you don't get extra black over top of the black that already exists. But I think it looks a little bit better now. But here you can see the crack repair right here, as well as along the edge of the neck. And then looking at this one under blacklight, I truly believe that's just a finish check. I mean, it likely occurred when the headstock got snapped off, but I do not see any evidence of the finish actually being completely broken or any repair. I mean, take a look compared to the headstock version. It looks more different, but let's go ahead and say the heel's been repaired too, just in case. It's definitely a player's grade instrument here, but man, it's a lot of fun. Thankfully, this guitar still has its original Electra case here. You can see it's got a badge that reads that. It's a little bit dusty, it's scuffed up, it's been used, but all 4 latches are present and functioning, as is the handle. And it's kind of like a hard exterior. I mean, similar to a chainsaw case, but not exactly. We're talking about a Gen 3 chainsaw, by the way. The interior here, I'm not sure how this happens. How does chunks of the interior get ripped off? Luckily, inside of here, there is one piece of it. I'm guessing it was originally there, or something like that. So you could put that back if you want, but I'll just leave that in here. I'm not quite sure what this is for. And there's another compartment right here. It just has a Uncle Sammy sticker in it. So it's a basic case, kind of reminds me of that PV, I think, what was it, a T60 case or something? But it protects the guitar pretty well. Brown on brown. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in to Trade Tuesday this week. Yeah, it's a day late, but oh well. If you're interested in trading me something, you can email me at tradetrogly@gmail.com. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.